Faith anchors us in God's power, not in our own abilities. Faith moves us to that point where we have to surrender. The circumstances are overwhelming, and I do not see a way forward other than you, God. And I believe that your strength, your power, your ability, your might far outweighs anything that I can do. Do I have responsibility? Did Abraham have responsibility? Absolutely, he did. But that responsibility was anchored in faith. So if point one shows us that faith faces reality, I think the second point helps us to keep faith from collapsing under the weight of the realities that we face every day. In verses 20 and 21, Paul says, Abraham never wavered in believing God's promise. In fact, his faith grew stronger. And in this, he brought glory to God. He was fully convinced that God is able to do whatever he promises. Now you might say, well, Pastor Mike, didn't he just laugh? He did. He was still believing the promise. He just didn't know how God was going to accomplish it. And like we often do, he was trying to help God out. Right? He had faith that the promise was still there. So his faith isn't wavering, but his faith wasn't fully settled upon God. And that's what we work out every day in our life. And that little bit of wavering there and wondering as we still work towards what we know the promise is, God has his grace and it's abundant in our lives. So for Paul, pointing back to Abraham, let's pay attention to where the emphasis actually falls here. It's not on Abraham's strength. It's not on his optimism. And it's not on his ability to manufacture belief. The emphasis is on God, that he is able. I know that my God can accomplish this. That is the anchor for Abraham and for us as well. Paul says, again, Abraham didn't waver. The language suggests that he was not divided internally. He was not pulled apart between what he saw and what he believed. How's that possible? It's because his confidence was not in his body. It was not in Sarah's biological time clock. It was not in the timing. It wasn't in even the probability that this is going to happen. It was in the power of God. And that power becomes even more clear when we move forward in Abraham's story. Listen to this simple line from the story of Abraham and Isaac in Genesis chapter 22. You know the story that Isaac is there now. That promise has been realized. And God says, okay, I need you to take that promise, the one who all of those stars, remember that, take them out and sacrifice him. Right? And so Abraham believes in faith. Listen to this in verse 5. As he's talking to his servants, he says, stay here with the donkey. Abraham told the servant, the boy and I will travel a little farther. We will worship there, and then I will come right back. Is that what it says? It's not what it says, is it? We will come right back. That's faith. In his mind, he's been told, and he plans to follow through with the sacrifice. But there's that part of him who believes that somehow, some way, God is going to do what God said he would do. He believes the promise irregardless of those circumstances. We will worship there, and then we will come right back. Because at that moment, everything around him says no. The knife's in his hand. The commandment is clear. Now, in Hebrews 11, the writer points back to it and says very clearly that Abraham had a belief that some way God would provide. He didn't know if A, he was going to provide the sacrifice, which we know he did, right? Once he gets up there, as he's about ready to do it, the ram bays, and he knows that that has been provided in place of Isaac. So there's that. We know the way the story unfolds. But the writer of Hebrews says part of this is even the idea that God could raise him from the dead. Abraham reasoned that if Isaac died, God could bring him back to life.